Hello and welcome, everybody. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Breakpoint 2 Virtual Game Developer Summit. Now, this is a day-long developer summit full of technical talks where developers learn from each other, they network through ideas and various different things. However, there are two specific sessions that I wanted to stream here. The first being leaning into the cloud native. And this is being hosted by, it's approximately 45 minutes, by Ryan Bartley. He's a product manager at Google Stadia. And he did do part of the talks this past July in the Google for Games Summit. So I thought this would be very interesting. He's going to talk about his experience of certification during Stadia's launch and various other things. So I thought that this would be very interesting to stream and watch along with others. Now, mind you, again, this is going to be a technical talk. There's not going to be any new game announcements or any of that cool jazz. So, keep that in mind. And I think setting our expectations accordingly, it'll be very interesting. There might be stuff that we, really don't understand or whatnot. But yeah, this will be fun. And then later, 4:55 Eastern, I will be back again with the final session of the show. It's game testing, strategies, testabilities, instrumentation, and the future. And Ryan will be part of a panel there. So we'll take a look at all that fun stuff here shortly. And you can see here, we'll call it, the session is about ready to start here. Counting down. Shout out to everyone in the chat here. I see PyCon Fusion, Rock, Ninja Guy, I Can't See, Mark Zally. Thank you again. And all those that are watching and just lurking here. I'm going to go ahead and turn up the volume. And we'll get that. Let me know everything sounds okay. I'm going to set the volume at 100% here. It should be okay because I'm not going to be talking a whole lot over it. So, hey, Stitchin, how you doing? I will be in the chat here, and you can see we're about 20 seconds away here. Now, I've noticed that through the other sessions, there was a little bit of lag in the voice and things like that. So that might be the same situation with Ryan's here. But here we go. I'm going to mute myself, and I'll be in the chat as well.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening to everyone that's watching this presentation, wherever you may be. This session is entitled Leaning into the Cloud Native and will track the progression of Stadia's developer experience and how a focus on automating, centralizing, and simplifying our tools improved our partners' ability to launch content on the platform. My name is Ryan Bartley, and I'm a product manager at Stadia focused on the developer experience, specifically as it pertains to testing, tech cert, and the larger content pipeline. In this talk, I'll be revealing key insights and learnings from Stadia's initial launch to improve testing and certification, why the user journey of tester is paramount to that improvement, and how cloud gaming infrastructure enables 2 and even 3 times cert and testing cycles. At the end, there should be a bit of time for QA if people have questions. So let's jump into the experience of certification at launch and how that experience uncovered issues that became the focus of our improvements. One of the most exciting things about Stadia is that we meet players where they are, meaning every machine that can speak to the internet could potentially become a high-powered gaming rig. Stadia launched with over 20 games. It was truly an exciting time for anyone looking to try cloud gaming and for our developer partners who got to share their games with players on devices they already owned. But it took a lot of work. Each game required more than 3 full certifications to launch. If you aren't familiar with what certification is, briefly, it's a set of final requirements, or STRs as we call them, that a game must comply with to launch on our platform. Now, a typical certification takes around 5 business days to complete. So with more than 20 games at 3 plus full certifications, you can imagine that we were spending an enormous amount of time testing and retesting. It became clear we needed to improve the process. So our UX designers and research team audited our entire development and testing user journeys, from onboarding to testing to launching a game and even debugging, so that they could come up with a comprehensive outline of the experience to determine where improvements would have the greatest impact. Suffice to say, there was an immense amount of steps involved in each process, pages and pages in fact. What we found was that our tools were fragmented and partner developers and testers had to become experts in our infrastructure to use them effectively, navigating an enormous amount of low-level and command line interfaces to get the simplest tasks done. Furthermore, some of our user journeys required our partners travel across multiple tools to do their job. All of this led to understandable frustration and confusion. Briefly, I wanted to highlight a common user journey for testing certification compliance at launch so that you could get a better idea of where some of this frustration came from. The first step of almost any test often involved generating a large Linux-esque launch command to properly configure the instance for the test, and each configuration was a little different. Once the game was up and running, the user would then need to set up and monitor a set of graphs or find and dump a set of system logs while they were playing the game or performing the tasks. Finally, the user needed to manually copy those logs using various command line tools and then run those logs through another command line tool to find out whether or not they actually passed the test. Now, for an audience such as QA that wasn't as technical as their developer counterparts, this was an expensive process to master. The often manual and complex set of steps became a real pain, and it usually fell to those same developers to build out shortcuts and automation to enable them to do their job, which expanded the burden of certification. Furthermore, launching the game to our player endpoints was far more difficult for developers and testers due to a number of factors. So if problems arose, they couldn't easily mimic or fix the issues we were seeing as the player. Now, all that aside, at the exact same time, we were also starting to receive really positive signals from several teams, both big and small, that our infrastructure became a huge asset when people started working from home in March of 2020. Bungie and Ubisoft in particular harnessed our cloud infrastructure to scale their own testing efforts due to the ease with which testing the latest build from any logged-in computer in the world created. So we knew we had something special that could really help teams scale their efforts, but at the same time, it became clear that our tools were impeding much of that same progress. This junction of both the good and the bad surrounding testing was when we realized the tester could in fact be the common denominator of the platform, and that by simplifying the testing journey, we could increase the quality and efficiency of launching content on the platform for everyone. So why the testing user journey instead of, say, the developer or the producer user journey? To understand that, I'll take a giant step back and look at the game lifecycle from 90,000 feet. Partners develop their game, typically on Windows, then they translate the game to different platforms using translation layers. As they prepare for launch, they begin finalizing the game to the particular platform requirements. Finally, the game is marketed and released. Iteration of this cycle happens throughout and continuously as content moves back and forth between these steps. We think of this high-level process of preparing your game for launch as the content pipeline. And what we realized is that the transitions back and forth between the phases were largely controlled by our partners' ability to test and stabilize those changes. Every single step requires a significant amount of testing by various parts of the team. If partners can't test the game on the platform, then changes start to back up earlier in the process, leading to a less stable overall product. Further, we found that testing doesn't only happen as a part of QA, but spans the roles associated with creating the game. To put it a different way, every single person becomes a tester over the course of a production. For instance, developers test constantly and iterate on those tests and those changes, passing it off to QA when they feel like things are ready. QA then tests in several different ways, such as gameplay, stability, compliance, marking changes good along the way. Producers, game designers, release managers, and even executives also all need access to the results of those various tests to help content move through seamlessly. Even Stadia engineers and Stadia's certification operations test using the games at different stages. But when testing the content requires such a significant amount of expertise to the platform infrastructure, you begin to eliminate who can test what, which hampers not only the efficiency of the content pipeline, but also hampers the ability of delivering the best possible experience. This, we believed, was one of the biggest factors leading to multiple certifications at launch. Our partners couldn't effectively test their game and relied upon our internal certification to find the areas they needed to fix. This is when we knew investment in the QA user journey would yield significant results across a wider spectrum of user journeys. To be a bit more specific, first, we knew the goals of QA were aligned with kind of understanding and reflecting the quality of the game to other user groups. So we felt enhancing their ability to do so would only increase the quality of the output. Further, QA teams are the largest user set by far. Even for very small development teams that don't actually have specialized QA, it typically falls to the developers and producers to act as such. Next, QA aren't generally as technical as developers, so the configuration and automation improvements required to effectively enable that user journey would likely benefit all other user types. And similarly, QA is generating a ton of game-related data they use to help other teams make necessary decisions. Compliance results, bugs, logs, crash dumps, etc. And so automating and scaling access to that data would inevitably enhance all users requiring it. And then finally, they clearly share so many similarities and synergies with other user groups, but even more exciting was the fact that in many ways they were essentially mirrors to our own internal certification operations. This meant that investment in helping them to do their job would translate one for one to our own internal efforts. By focusing in on the QA journey, we knew we could create a seamless developer experience with the same priority towards ease that our players had come to expect. And to do this, we built a project we called Develop Anywhere, Collaborate Everywhere. This project has produced a collection of features all centered around what we call Test Hub, which helps to increase the efficiency of your team to develop content and share insights, making it easier to test and certify your game. I'll step through each feature in detail, but I first wanted to highlight the brains of this set of features, Test Hub. Test Hub creates really a unified way for all users of Stadia to test their games across any Stadia endpoint. It's also where partners go to debug issues with comprehensive logs and feedback during and after the session. Building out a single entry point allowed us to really focus our efforts on the exact set of problems the testers were trying to solve for their teams, namely a simple launch setup, configurable view of the data, automatic STR calculations, and post-run shareability of that data, making it easier for each of the roles we discussed earlier to extract the exact data set they need as they test their game and prepare for certification. Test Hub centralizes and organizes all the tools that were so disparate at launch around a really strong foundation that can continuously be built upon to add more and more useful information and functionality. Now, let's dive into each tool in particular to show you how they've increased our partners' efficiency. First, we'll start with Launch Anywhere. Really, this is the initial setup that you need to test your content. This feature removes the barrier users originally had in testing their content on player endpoints. To do this originally, partners needed to set up extensive configurations and constantly apply changes to launch their game like a gamer. And this added a lot of friction for developer teams because you needed an enormous amount of knowledge of our infrastructure to actually build these configurations. As I'll show in a second, with a single selection now, developers can launch directly to any of our growing catalog of clients just by logging in with their developer account. This has been especially useful during the pandemic because testers were able to simply log into their own Chromecast or Android and begin securely playing last night's build instantly, just like a player. Now let me show you how it works. No matter which tool you prefer, Visual Studio, Command Line, or the Stadia Partner Portal, you can have a consistent experience across all these tools so that you can work from wherever you are most comfortable. Once you're ready to launch the game, you can select whichever endpoint you prefer and pick that game up on that endpoint after you're logged in. We automatically at that point start collecting game run data as soon as the game executable starts. Streaming anything we can capture in real time to Test Hub and storing the rest of it for later in game runs. It lets partners really launch from anything to anywhere and capture relevant data along the way. Next, we'll discuss the live game run. When your game is running, this view contains all of the configuration data and the live information a user would need to monitor or control their game. We've also built a mechanism to stream your most important log information to ensure you've got all your game data as you need it all in one space. While many of the current set of features aren't new, they were originally spread across several different tools, making it very difficult for teams to jump in and assess quality and compliance without really understanding all of our tools at once. Furthermore, we're making layout configurations accessible so that you and your team can choose the exact set of data easily to reduce your overall churn while developing. Next, we'll discuss the historical data view, which really unlocks much of the collaboration features your team can benefit from. After you're done running your game, several artifacts such as logs, assets, and configuration data from your instance are frozen and made shareable amongst your team. It is also where you'd access several results for the certification requirements that we've discussed earlier. If you'll recall, all of the original STRs required numerous CLI commands to verify compliance of our requirements. This set of functionality eliminates the need to use the CLI for our STRs, making it far easier to know and expect exactly where your team is in the process of compliance. This ever-growing data set is immediately stored and accessible by your team, fitting into each of your existing flows of bug generation and asset management. And then finally, there's a feature that's on the side of these called channels, which enables a number of really important features for scalable playtesting. Namely, securely releasing your content to a moderated list of users instantly. Yes, you heard that right. We made it possible to release your content to any group of users you choose without first needing to go through certification. This is useful for many ways of testing, such as alpha, beta testing, an in-progress game, releasing it to your test team to test functionality in the live environment, or releasing the game to the press before launch. One of the exciting things we want to bring to this feature is the ability to capture all the run data we currently collect in the development environment. We believe this will further enable your team to scale their testing efforts while giving them the data they require to make adjustments. Now that all of these tools have been available for the past 2 quarters, we've been able to see how they've improved our partners' ability to certify content on the platform. Our original metric for full and final certifications per launch was well above 3 certifications per launch. That number is now reduced to only 1.67 certifications per launch, which is a tremendous decrease in failures, in the failure rate of certification. But I think that doesn't quite paint the picture of how much we've improved things. When you certify, there's also a process that allows you to apply for waivers to those requirements, that allows you to either get a temporary or, depending on the type of game and STR, a permanent waiver to those requirements. Around launch, we were giving out well above 10 STR waivers per launch. And now we're hovering at around an average of just 4 total waivers per launch. Furthermore, we found another metric important to telling this story was how many waivers were requested after the first full and final certification. This metric showed us how our partners were using our internal certification team as almost a compliance QA team, giving them a list of what they needed to complete so that they could actually release their content. That original number of waivers coming after the first certification went from around 10 to less than 2 waivers per launch, meaning we significantly reduced the proportion of waivers sought by partners due to the complexity of our tooling. They now have the information they need at the time they need in easier, more accessible ways so that they aren't as reliant on our internal expert testing team to tell them what's wrong with their game. But we're just getting started. We hope that you see the value of this set of functionality beyond just the certification use case. And we further heard your feedback to the release of all the features that I've already spoken about, and are already planning several upgrades to the features we discussed. Namely, further building out the controls in Test Hub to make it more accessible by all user journeys, and allowing you to focus on the data that is most important to your role, automatically collecting even more artifacts and making those artifacts easy to find and shareable, and then making game runs even easier to access from more places. And finally, as I said earlier, integrating the game run capture features with the channel functionality to make it easier for your team to get the data they need no matter where they're testing their content. I hope you've enjoyed going through this process of how Stadia was able to improve the ability of releasing content on the platform by leaning into the cloud native with me today. Again, just to recap, we've made it significantly easier to test, certify, and prepare content for release on the platform across all user journeys. We believe that instant access to your content and ability to securely collaborate on data is changing the way our partners are building their games. And as you can see from our expected releases in 2022, we have over 100 plus titles that we expect to release in 2022, which is a testament to partner satisfaction with the current new sets of tools. And then finally, I will be sharing a deep dive on how you and your partners can use these tools most effectively in the upcoming Google for Games Developer Summit in a few weeks. I appreciate all of your time, and please feel free, if you and your team can use these tools effectively, to apply at stadia.dev. And now, if there are any questions, I can start taking those now. Thank you.
We hope you're enjoying Breakpoint by Backtrace so far. Please feel free to ask any questions you may have during the session in the chat section of your screen.
Hi, my name is Ryan, and I'm here to answer some questions from the chat after my presentation. Looks like we have a couple of questions. Briefly, for Test Hub, when selecting a test client, does this need to match host OS, or could I test Mac OS on PC? This is an interesting question. I think really Test Hub allows you to play the game on any browser enabled device that you have access to. So what that kind of means is that if I log into my developer, kind of player portal with my developer login, that player endpoint then becomes activated by all of the kind of launch anywhere tooling that we've created. So the process would essentially be like, let's say I want to play on Mac OS, which is a great place to play, but you can essentially, log into the Stadia player portal with your developer account. Then our backend knows that that player portal is registered to you, and then you can launch the game using all player endpoints, and you'll get a message on that player portal that says, would you like to start it here? And if you had other devices logged in, they would also ask, would you like to start it here or here? And you could just start it and then immediately test hub wherever you're running it, because again, this is just a Chrome web browser endpoint. Will start kind of flushing that data and showing you kind of how your game is performing. So it really is kind of completely disconnected from needing to be on Mac or needing to be on PC or on TV or on mobile. You can really do it anywhere, and you can make it as convenient as you need. What made you interested in working on Stadia and cloud gaming? That's a great question. I'm going to speak probably a little bit to this in the panel later, but I'll share a quick story of what really kind of got me excited about this. One of my friends actually kind of asked me like, hey, Google's doing this kind of really cool thing. I can't really talk about it, but they're doing a lot of great stuff with graphics. And at the time, I was a pretty deep graphics engineer, and so I jumped on the opportunity. And whenever I actually got the job, I came in on the first day, and there was like a lot of fun gaming things all around, and I kind of started to understand, perhaps what the job was, but I hadn't really seen anything. And we had sat down in this little nook on the Google floor, and Doom was playing on the TV, and we kind of picked it up and started playing, and I was hoping that I didn't embarrass myself on the first day, and so we kind of played it, and it was great, but I was kind of like, oh well, maybe I can see my seat, and my manager said, that's actually playing from a cloud, edge node, 30 to 40 miles away from here. And I was absolutely flabbergasted because I did not expect that. And I didn't even really think, that there was that much of a difference. So immediately I was like, wow, this is pretty incredible. And it grew from there. I really love this technology. I think it's a really hard problem to solve. And I think one of the reasons that I moved kind of away from graphics engineering into PM is that I really wanted to solve the problem of the developer experience, and kind of as I had said in the presentation, lean into the cloud native. I think one of the things that is an aspect that we get to take advantage of is that we have to develop in this kind of different environment than most developers develop in. And so it's a lot of new challenges that are really exciting to solve. And I think that they could add a lot to, the experience of developing generally, from now on. And I think we're hearing that a lot from our developers these days. And then also, the fact that I can show any of my friends this technology just by logging in and playing for free anywhere. I can just be like, oh, you want to see what I do? Well, here, if you have a phone, I can show you. it's just kind of amazing, and everybody's kind of like, whoa, that's awesome. So yeah, that gets me excited about it. Are all the here's another question. Are these features available to all developers? Yeah, so this is this is essentially the fundamental tools that we offer to anyone who joins Stadia. Like I said in the presentation, if you're not already a part of it, please feel free to apply, and we would love to help anyone kind of build their playtesting ability. And like I said in the presentation, we're going to have a Google for Games Summit presentation that goes deeper into, kind of the specifics about like, how can you really utilize our infrastructure to your benefit as a way to, scale your testing team. So yes, everything that you see here is available. And as soon as you start developing that's what you use. And then what are your future plans to add more value and efficiency to the game development workflow? I mean, this is my favorite topic, and I think people internally at Stadia are probably tired of hearing me talk about it so much. I am just so excited with the way in which the kind of test hub and the develop anywhere, collaborate everywhere is working out, that all I want to do is add to it and build out that foundation. What I feel like we have now, which has taken a lot of work to create, is still just a foundation. And I think when we think about adding more artifacts, perhaps arbitrary artifacts or events that can be timed on a timeline, recording more data over the period of the gameplay and over the period of the session, and then being able to give you more information, more context, more screenshots, more functionality like that can help, again, the tester instantly be able to articulate the problem to the developer who needs to fix it, so that we can increase the efficiency of the entire team. And I think that's really, like I said, that's what really excites me, and that's what I think we can provide that is perhaps different than other platforms can perhaps provide. Yeah, there are no other questions at this point, but I can wait a second. While I'm waiting, just in case nothing else comes, I wanted to really quickly give a shout out to the entire Backtrace and Breakpoint crew. They've been absolutely wonderful to me. It took me a little bit more time than I expected to create this presentation, and they were just absolutely wonderful, and I really, really appreciate it. All of the help that they gave, and and being a part of this. Give another second to see if there's any other. So one of the things that, let's see. Yep, I think that's it. Oh, sorry, wait, there's one's coming in. Are there other third-party development tools, engines that you're planning to collab with? That's an interesting question. So right now we support Unity, fully support Unity, fully support Unreal Engine. We're also working to enable Unreal 5, Unreal Engine 5. And so, yeah, we definitely collaborate with the major engines. And there are obviously there's a third-party development tool called Backtrace that we work with, and they actually do a ton of work with our partners to collect all of the crash dumps and make it available to the team in the exact same way that Backtrace typically does it for other platforms. So that should work into your flow. Oh, great. There's some more questions. How configurable is the hardware my game runs on? Could I use this to profile my game's performance on different hardware? That's a good question. Currently there is a specific spec of hardware that your game can run on. I believe that it's public, but I don't have the exact information off the top of my head. But it is you can get the information. That being said, there are kind of a few different specs of that can be used for different purposes. So you could, let's say, run in what we call like a developer mode, which allows you to have far more RAM than is available to the game in production, and a faster clock speed, a faster I/O, and a faster CPU clock speed and faster input output from the edge. But I believe that the clock of the GPU is locked. So there are some configurable things, and you could definitely get a better idea of performance. And one of the things that I really wanted to get across in the presentation is that if you think about how you're going to test your game independent of any type of hardware, and just kind of testing your gameplay, Stadia is great for that and can really, like I said, scale your playtest, because one of the key pieces of infrastructure that we have is what we call the package, which is essentially your binary and your assets. And you upload those at once, and they're distributed to our entire infrastructure so that all of your test team has instant access to that specific set of assets and binaries. And you can even diff across those. You can make diffs of the packages, and you can also mount the package and then like overlay different assets for really optimal iteration cycles. So yeah, we really believe that Stadia can be the kind of platform independent testing infrastructure that can really play test. And that's what I'll be talking about in the Google Games Summit. Just a quick, okay, 3 more minutes. When were these certification improvements implemented? So we actually were able to release these as a part of our Q4, at the beginning of our Q4. So we have basically the data from Q4 and Q1 as what is reflected in the presentation. We're very excited. And then finally, I think that is, do I have any others? Yeah. I think that is it. Sorry. Let me see. I believe, how much time do I have? Sorry. Do you expect to have an improvement on the likelihood of older developers to go back at it because of these certification improvements? Yeah, I definitely believe that we've already heard an enormous amount of excitement from people who have launched games on the platform before and who are launching them on the platform today. Like I said, we have over 100 games coming this year, and really I've been in meetings where these specific improvements were kind of very much heralded as the reasons why a lot of partners are very excited to come back and excited to keep making games and releasing them on Stadia. So we're very excited about that. So yeah, I'll wrap up now, getting the wrap it up. But yeah, like I said, I really appreciate all the questions and really appreciate the time, and thank you again to the Backtrace folks, and yeah.
All righty. So there we have it. That was our session with Ryan here at the Breakpoint 2 Virtual Game Developer Summit, leaning into the cloud native. It was really interesting to learn a lot of things. We actually even got a couple of questions answered, which was pretty cool itself. I'll be back again here, right in about 45 minutes or so. For the final session, which is going to be game testing strategies, testability, instrumentation, and the future. Ryan will be part of the panel there. So we'll definitely be streaming that. And that's expected to last for a little over an hour. So join me again here later today, 45 minutes. Back again. Thank you all so much, everybody. I really do appreciate all your love and support. If you haven't already, hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed, hit the bell. You'll always know when I go live. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you again here in about 45 minutes.